All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Raw Intuition Health Show. So good to see everybody in the chat. Sorry we got started a little bit late here, but thank you for sticking with us. And it's going to be a great show. It's going to be a really good show. I'm super excited for our guest today. It's somebody that I have been following for quite a while now, and I really admire him and appreciate what he's doing to educate people and to help people really find true health. So this week we've got Marco Ranzi on the show to talk about how to succeed without when you don't have the motivation, right? Because it's not going to be, we're not going to have the motivation all the time. And so it's so key to find ways to be able to continue making progress towards your goals even when you're not motivated. So that's what we're going to talk about today. A little backstory here on Marco. He is a holistic health coach who supports individuals to achieve their health goals utilizing lifestyle as medicine with nutrition, sleep, exercise, and other lifestyle changes. He has a master's degree in nutrition and human performance and is a certified in plant-based nutrition, permaculture design, and as a personal trainer. He was homeschooled from kindergarten until he decided to go to college at Penn State University. In 2017, he hiked the entire 2,190 miles of the Appalachian Trail, completely powered by plants. So excited to have Marco here. Let's get him in here. What's up, Marco? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for so much for having me. Once again, sorry for the technical difficulties to start off, but
No
yeah,
worries.
it's good to be here, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. Looking forward to it.
For sure. Yeah, I almost every show I've got some sort of technical difficulty going, so it's just par for the course. So no worries at all. But yeah, really excited for this conversation. I did see a post that you made about this topic and having success even when you're not motivated, and so I thought this would be a great topic to have the show centered around. And so, guys, as always, stick around till the end to the Q&A session, and we'll of course have a giveaway again, like we always do. You can either get a free ebook of mine, or you can get a free bottle of Daily Green Boost. So if you put your question in, you might be selected to get one of those gifts. All right. And so, yeah. What's that? Yeah, you can ask questions.
Yeah, let's do
For
it.
sure, for sure. Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, just kind of before we get started, if you could just share a little bit about how you got into this lifestyle and just kind of the path that you took to get here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So I always like to start at the beginning and say that I was very fortunate to be born into a vegetarian family. So my mom was more health conscious, and along the same lines, I always like to say when it comes to vegan, vegetarian, I like to say it says what you don't eat, it doesn't say what you do eat. And especially nowadays, you could be vegan, vegetarian, and eating things that are not conducive to health, whether it's the burgers that are out there, the ice creams, cheeses, all these things, Oreos and Coca Cola is vegan as well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the first couple of years of my life, even though I was eating vegetarian foods, I wasn't very healthy. And I had chronic ear infections. I had really, really bad asthma. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to breathe. So my mom said, okay, it's time to go back to the drawing board because this vegetarian thing obviously isn't working. So she did a little bit more research, and she saw really how important whole plant foods are instead of processed foods. And after that, she basically just started feeding me fruits and vegetables.
Uh,
And a
Sorry,
year
one
later,
second.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. They're saying your audio is a little low. I'm not sure if that's on your end. I've got my bars turned all the way up, so I'm not sure. Um,
I can, if it's helpful, I can maybe go grab a headset. Would that be better, or is it that low? Or I could kind of bring it closer to where I am, but mine are all the way tuned up at the moment.
Maybe. I don't know. A few people have said they're having trouble hearing.
Okay, I could also switch to my computer. Maybe that would be better. The audio from there. Maybe switch to my computer and get the headphones real fast.
Sure. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. I obviously if we want to make sure people can hear as best as they can.
For sure.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just going to put us in the be right back screen. So, guys, we'll be right back.
Awesome. All right, I doubled up now. Okay. Awesome. Beautiful.
All right, guys, we are back. How does the audio sound now?
Check. Hello, everyone. Test number 2. We got a new device and headsets. So
Yes, it
good
sounds really
game.
good. It sounds good on my end. Okay,
Okay,
Sherry said great. All right, so we're back in business. All right.
fantastic. So yeah, I was just leaving off where basically my mom changed what I was eating and focused a lot more on whole plant foods and really eliminated all processed foods, even if they were vegetarian. And within a year of doing that, all my symptoms disappeared and never came back. So never had chronic ear infections or asthma again. And I basically grew up that way. Obviously, once you become a teenager and you start going into the world on your own a bit, things changed.
Yeah.
Uh, and also, you mentioned that I did my undergraduate degree at Penn State. When I went to college, that's where I really kind of explored other food options and was basically eating the standard American diet for the first time in my life. Being in that environment, being surrounded by other people that eat that way all the time, all my roommates, is just the culture. And also, I was curious as well. And to be honest, part of it was also rebellion to some degree.
Yeah.
I love my mom, and I know she was doing the best for me, but she really wanted me to continue to eat this way because she knew in her heart, um, how effective it is and how other foods are toxic and have consequences. But obviously, as a teenager and a young man, this is something that I needed to learn on my own, and I did learn it on my own because really once I graduated from college and I finally had the time to tune in with myself and kind of take inventory of my health, I realized I put on a significant amount of weight for the first time in my life. My energy levels were just way down and had some other health symptoms that just didn't feel really healthy.
Mm.
So I remember I was going on a road trip with a friend of mine and we were going food shopping, and I just soon after I graduated and I was just made the decision there. I'm like, what am I doing? I gotta change. So I said, okay, let me go back to eating this whole food plant-based lifestyle. And the same thing happened. Within a year, my weight came back to the ideal range, my energy came back, and it really made an impact on me to have these two different times in my life where nutrition made such a big impact that it really inspired me to learn more about health and wellness. So the first thing after that, I got certified as a personal trainer. Then I did a mentorship with a gentleman named Dr. Doug Graham that many
Mm.
people may know. As you mentioned, I got certified in plant-based nutrition and I got my master's in nutrition. And I've been in the coaching space for 5 years now. And I love doing what I do because I see on a daily basis the power of lifestyle change.
Mm.
I've had conflicting feelings about medication. I definitely, I used to be completely anti-medication, and then from working with a lot of people, you kind of see that some people it can be helpful. If they're not willing to make the lifestyle change,
Sure.
medication can be life-saving in some ways. But for the people that are interested in changing their lifestyle, then medication is just it's just a band-aid. It doesn't address the root cause, which lifestyle does. So I'm really passionate about that. I live here in Costa Rica. Besides the occasional technical difficulties, there's a lot of things that I love being here with my wife, and we do all sorts of things together, like retreats, and she does coaching as well. So we really love this space, and yeah, I, I appreciate you for giving people the platform to spread this information, because it really is powerful. And if somebody doesn't want to make the change, that's fine. Everybody's on their own path, but you're doing the service of putting this information out there so people could at least be aware of it, right? And then they can make their own decisions from there. So
Yeah.
yeah, just happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And it's so inspiring to me to see people like you who have really embraced the lifestyle. And I mean, you moved to Costa Rica and you hold retreats. I think that's incredible in itself. And I think, did I see that do you have are you creating like a food forest down there or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
That's like all my free time that I have goes into that. I could talk about that for ages. So I don't know how how far we want to get into that conversation, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think in general, though, I mean, it's something that I've kind of prioritized because it's always been a dream of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I like to talk about with people that I'm working with is like, no matter where you are, you could grow some sort of food, right?
Sure.
Just seeing the growth of life, right? Even if it's sprouting, sprouting is so good for you, and you can do that on your kitchen top with a jar. So I think the more that we're in tune and connected with our food, the more vitality we're going to have. So I'm a big fan of that entire spectrum and what it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. So cool. All right. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm a big fan of your mom's as well. So your family is just incredible. So I appreciate all of you. So yeah, let's get into the topic then of how to continue reaching our goals and continue having success even when the motivation isn't always there. And how can we set ourselves up for success in that way. So do you want to start us off with your first kind of point in that area?
For sure. Yeah, there's so much to get into here. I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to unpack it exactly, but I would say the first thing about motivation, I would say a lot of times people feel like they have to be motivated to do something. And I think if you're starting with that as your foundation, then you're doing a great disservice to yourself and you're limiting what you're capable of doing. Um, the more that I've been around the coaching space, the more that I've seen that sure there's so much that we could get into about details about diet, about exercise, about sleep, all these things that are foundational to health. But really so much of it is just the headspace that you're in and your mentality. And you know, it's kind of cliche, but it's true. We're our own limitations in so
Mm.
many ways. It's like sometimes we put ourselves in this box of what we can achieve or what we're capable of, or for this example of I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z until I feel motivated, right? Like that's kind of the precursor for something to happen. So I would start with just saying that the more that we're able to think about what we're thinking about, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I'm a big fan of, a
Me too.
neuroscientist, that's one of his quotes. you have to be aware of what you're thinking about in so many different ways to make progress, because the brain is it's a vast territory, and it could be your best friend, but it could be your worst enemy at the same time. um, so I think starting there and just looking at, okay, I don't have to be motivated to take action, and then also remembering that in general emotions, they come and they go, and feelings come and we go. That's part of being human in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
It's what makes us amazing, but it's also what you know can bring us a lot of troubles at the same time as well, as we're very emotional beings. Many people that do advertising and business negotiations, they all know this, and they know that you know people make emotional decisions and they can take advantage of that.
Yep.
uh, so being able to start being aware of the thoughts that you have, the emotions that you have, and really one of the main laws of the universe is that everything changes. So, this too shall pass. Whether it's emotion, whether it's life circumstance, everything will change for the better or for the worse, right? There's sometimes that we have these moments in our lives and we're just thinking, "Oh my god, I just want this to last forever."
Yep.
It's not going to last forever. It's going to change. And there's other times in our lives where it's like maybe you hit rock bottom or you're feeling really low, and that could feel like it's a lot longer, right?
Hmm.
But that will change as well, right? So it works both ways. So I would say the first point, as far as not relying on motivation to take action, and also this is a muscle as well. There's really just in habit change. The more that you do something, the more that you're voting for yourself, the more that you're making that connection, whether that's the neural connections in your brain, whether that's just taking the actions to do it and seeing the rewards of it. So being aware to be like, okay, I don't feel motivated, I'm going to do it anyway. Like take the I invite everybody here to be aware of those spots sometimes, and whether you're on the couch or you had a long day. Like, I always like to give the example of, there's times where I have a long day and maybe the next day, I have an early start and I'm going to be on the road. And I know that if I don't prepare food now, then I'm going to be in a really poor situation tomorrow, as far as being in a place where there's not a lot of food to eat. I'm going to be hungry. I'm probably going to make poor choices because of the environment that I'm in. And I know that I need to do some meal prep now. I need to do some preparation for myself to be healthy, and I don't feel like doing it, but I say, okay, just because I don't feel like doing it doesn't mean that I can't do it. So I get up, I do my meal prep, and obviously in the moment there's resistance. There's resistance to doing it, but that's something that obviously has a positive outcome in the future. So just like anything else, that's a muscle that you strengthen, and you know, it's something that doing something like that used to be really difficult for me,
Mm.
but because I've kind of trained myself to think like, okay, yeah, I'm tired and all these things, I don't feel motivated to do it right now. I'm just gonna be aware of those thoughts and do it anyway. And to be honest, once you start doing whatever it is, like I said before, the emotions change, the feelings change, and that original hurdle, you know, kind of goes down, and it gets a little bit easier and easier as you go along.
Yeah. Yeah. Great way to start us off. There's so many things in there that kind of touch on a lot of the things that I'm going to bring up too, and um, it always brings me back to running. I don't know if you run at all, but that's my relationship with running. It's like I never want to go running really in the beginning, but once I get myself to do it, and then I've gone, even in the first few minutes of running, I'm like wanting to go back. But once I get just past those first few minutes, I love it, and so it feels so much better once I'm out there running. And so yeah, I kind of relate that to so many things in my life where you just get yourself going, and like you said, put yourself in the right environment to do that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great analogy, and it's kind of the same thing too. Um, I used to think that dopamine was just this feel good hormone, right? It's like, oh,
Hmm.
you feel good, dopamine. That's how you get it in life. But the more that I've learned from different neuroscientists is really we get a lot of dopamine just from progressing in some sort of ways. As human beings, we want to feel progress, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like running is such, as far as chemically all the endorphins in your body, and then also the dopamine that you get from, obviously you're progressing, you're running, you're making steps, you're making strides in that way. And yeah, I think that can't be underestimated, is when you start taking action and then it starts to feel good. Like, for example, once you finish that run, or once I finish that meal prep, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, right? Like
Yeah.
I just completed a task, I'm setting myself up, like you feel good afterwards. So
Mhm.
that's another thing too, is as far as our emotions are concerned, and Joe Dispenza, kind of going back to him, he's talked about this before. It's like you could tune into wherever you want, right? So as far as, say you're sitting on the couch and you want to go for the run, and you're not really feeling it in that moment, try and put yourself in the position where you finish that run,
Mm.
right? How good do you feel? And start feeling that space, because our imagination is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of times, like I said before, it kind of could work both ways, right? We can kind of imagine um, poor situations and poor scenarios as well. Um, but if you're able to, you know, visualization and visualize and get in that state of feeling accomplished and feeling like you just did this, and how good you're going to feel after you do this XYZ, whatever it is, then you can kind of ride that momentum and get into it and then feel those emotions in the end. But just visualizing, your body can feel all those emotions in that moment. It's like you don't have to actually do it. If you could really sit there and feel it, you can. So yeah, I totally agree with that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah, great point about the how powerful the imagination is. Yeah, I think people underestimate the power that their mind has over the outcomes in their life. So, yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And there's so many, those there was a lot of good segues in there for me to go into my first one. So I'll just say the first point that I thought to bring to this topic was designing the right environment for yourself. Like you mentioned this too, making the easy choice the convenient choice, right? So, or sorry, making the healthy choice the convenient choice. You want to make the healthiest choices the easiest for you, and if you know how to set up your environment in the right way, you can do that. Like, as you said, batch prepping meals, or if you're into juicing, you could make juice for a few days. You can make salad dressings that would last several days. You can make what you just want to make sure that you have an easy access to healthy food. If you're looking at, if you have health goals, if you're trying to eat healthy, I think, again, the motivation isn't always going to be there. But if you have put yourself in an environment where it's easy to make healthy choices, that's what most people are going to do, is they're going to do the easiest thing, right? Because we're just kind of designed to do that. We want to put in the least amount of effort to get the biggest reward. And so if you have those pre-prepared meals, or condiments, or whatever it is, having fruit just sitting out on the countertop, having enough ripe fruit in your house, having fresh greens in your fridge, right? So make sure you've got easy access to healthy choices. That's going to set you up even in the times where maybe you're stressed, or you're crunched for time, and you just feel like you just want to grab something and go. If you got a bunch of bananas sitting on the countertop, you can grab that. Or if you have, whatever it is, grapes or oranges, or anything like that. So definitely, I think the environment that we put ourselves in is one of the foundational keys to succeeding in times where we may not be motivated to, do what we know we should do. But if it's easy, then it's going to be much easier. It's going to be much more likely that you're going to choose those things. And that also goes for the people that you surround yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with people that uh, like to make unhealthy choices or do unhealthy things, then there's a good chance you're going to kind of trend in that direction. So having positive, supportive people, even if they're not like into the same lifestyle as you, as long as they're supportive and, loving and, they want you to
Respect.
feel, yeah, they have the respect for what you're wanting to do. you know, I think that it does help definitely to have people that are focused on, healthy living and all that stuff. But, I know some people say they don't have anybody around them. But even if you don't have anybody around you, your internet environment is also part of that too. So surrounding yourself with people like Marco and his mom Karen, get all these positive influences in your vicinity, whether it's in person or online, and that's going to also, even when you feel a little less motivated, if you're hearing and getting the energy from these people, then it's definitely going to support you in making better choices in those times.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna have to adjust mine a little bit because you took some of my points, but it's so
I thought
so
we
true.
might have similar,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so true. I mean, yeah, we say we're creatures of our environment in so many
Yeah.
ways, right? And I like to be. I think we need to be honest with ourselves, and we look at least in the states and our current environment, it's not conducive to health. Like,
Right.
let's be real. In most places in the world, it's not conducive to health. You look at these blue zones of the world where people
Hmm.
live long periods of time, disease free and healthy, and those are drying up, and they were small little parts of the world. So I think what you said is so important. I don't think you could underestimate environment by any means. And I think motivation and willpower kind of are tied together in
Mm.
some ways. They're a little bit different, but very similar. And a lot of times I hear people say, they say, I don't have the willpower to do it. I just didn't have the willpower. And, when it's later on in the day and you've had a long work day, or you've already used up all your willpower, it's really difficult you know, to foster more willpower and really, trying times. But if you have kind of hacked your environment to make it easier, so you don't need as much of that willpower, you don't need as much of that energy to do it, it makes such a huge difference. One practice that kind of along the same lines, one practice that I like to do as well, because I think your point about social media is so true. You have a social media environment, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I think one thing that can be really powerful, and I kind of got this idea from these gentlemen called the minimalists, where they, you know, live very minimal lives, and they talk about, oh, if you want to buy a new shirt, get rid of 10 shirts that you have, right? Because they have this one rule. They say the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your clothes you use 80% of the time, and the other 80% you only use 20% of the
That's
time.
so
So get
true.
rid of all the ones that you don't use and buy something new, that you really like, that you're going to use often. And I think it's helpful to do that with social media as well.
Mm.
So go through your social media and see what your environment is, and be like, I like this person. When I read their stuff or whatever, it doesn't really help me achieve my goals, and maybe unfollow 10 people and then pick a few new people to follow and change your environment that way. So I love that point. I think it's a great place to start as well.
Yeah, thank you. And just like you said earlier, because you mentioned, people will say, "Well, I don't have the willpower," or they're like, "That's great, you can do that. You must have really strong willpower. I just don't have that." It goes back to what you said about the power of the mind and the imagination. Is if you tell yourself that you don't have the willpower, and if that's the visual picture you have of who you are as somebody that doesn't have the willpower or doesn't know how to do something, like that's what you're creating in your life, right? So you got to change the way that you speak to yourself and about yourself, and that alone, that can be a big impact as well.
So true. So true.
Yeah. All right. What do you got? What do you got for us next?
Yeah. So for the next one, I think this is a really important one as well. And I would say, to a degree, this could be a source of motivation, but it could also, like kind of the topic as well, it could be a way to succeed without motivation as well. Um, And that's really knowing your why.
Mm.
Like, why are you doing what you're doing? I think this is actually something that I really hit home and became real to me when I was hiking the Appalachian Trail and actually preparing for it. You know, there's so much you can do. I think this is a good analogy just for a life example, maybe with nutrition or sleep or whatever. You could get all the information in the world, right? You could have your perfect sleep environment, you could have the wearables, you could track, you could have the perfect evening routine, perfect morning routine, you could do all these things, right? Um, you could kind of prepare as much as you want. Um, but at the end of the day, and this is what I learned for the Appalachian Trail as well. This gentleman was saying, it's like, yeah, you could get all the right gear, you could get this, you could get that, but there's going to be a time where you're hiking and it's been raining for 3 days and 4 days straight, and all your stuff is wet, and your brain is going to ask yourself, going back to the mentality, like, why am I here? Why don't I just go home? And if you don't have a really good answer, if you don't have a really good why, you're going to go home.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that that works in so many areas of life. And the more that we can be clear on our why and connect with our why, the easier it is to succeed without motivation. Because it's kind of like your North Star, right? Like, you know where you're going. And like anything in life, I think our brain kind of has this idea that it's linear. Like, success is just okay, I got it, just goes like that. But it's squiggly, it's messy. There's all sorts of bumps and bruises along the way, right? So knowing that, that's what the path looks like, and that during those trying times, coming back to your why is so important. Whether some whys that I see frequently with the people that I work with, a lot of times people talk about their family, being there for their family, um, the freedom that it creates in their life. A lot of times it's around health, right? It's like, whether it's people that are having kids and they want to be able to have the energy to be there with their kids, or they're retiring and they want to enjoy retirements, or they're in their early 20s and they just want to be able to go out with their friends, right? Like, having health is freedom in so many different ways. So there's so many different whys, and one practice that I feel like can be really helpful, because a lot of times, people start with goal setting. Usually people say, oh, I know what my goals are, and goals won't help you in this situation. Even your why sometimes won't, to be honest. It's not like bulletproof, but it can
Sure.
be extremely helpful, especially the deeper that you can connect with it. But in those times, goals just get thrown out the window, to be honest. Goal setting is great, but it's a really good practice to set your goals and then file them away and revisit them in a month or however long, and then you can change them. Um, but your why, and the deeper that you could connect with it, because a lot of times people will say, oh, my why is, I want to, you know, get to this weight, or I want these labs to look something. Sometimes it's numbers based in a lot of ways, and I'm like, that's not really your why. That's more of a goal, right? Your why is something that, when you embody it and when you feel it, you can connect with it. It almost makes you emotional, or it sparks something within you.
Mm.
And to get to that place, there's kind of a number of different techniques that you can use, but I really feel like taking the time to seriously consider that and writing it down. That's what I would recommend. Use a pen and a piece of paper or pencil, whatever it is. Don't write it on a computer. Don't write it on your phone. It just doesn't click the same. Our brains don't retain that information as much. So write it down, and the more that you could ask yourself why and keep going deeper and deeper, the more powerful it's going to be, and the more you're going to be able to utilize that and have that be your anchor during the times where it's you don't have the motivation, but you still want to keep progressing and still keep moving towards your goals.
Yeah, I think that's so key that you made the distinction between a goal and an actual why, like that visceral, that emotional feeling you get from it. Yeah, I don't think I think a lot of people conflate the two, and they just, yeah, like it's good to have that understanding of the difference. So, um, yeah, and I do think that having the why, like you said, is powerful, and having, you know it could be like, what do you can a why be like so I guess would it be a why or a goal to like say like for me, my goal was to publish a book, and it wasn't until I had the accountability from one of the previous raw bundles that I actually finally like I had a deadline and I finally finished that book. Whereas before it was like a goal to publish it, but I just kept like adding to it and never really finishing it. So I don't know. Like I my one of my maybe it was just a goal, but one of my whys was to not let the bundle people down. you know, as getting that accountability. So I don't know if that's a why or if that's more of just a goal, but that was one thing that popped into my mind for myself.
Absolutely. I would ask you, why did you not want to let those people down?
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a great question. uh, yeah, I guess I would have to think about that. But really, I mean, I just I don't like letting people down. And maybe there's a why, asking why for that too, you know. So I guess you could go deep on that.
Absolutely. The deeper you go, the better. But
Yeah.
I think it's that's where the magic is in a lot of ways. It's so true. I think
Yeah.
a lot of times, um, yeah, it's difficult sometimes to go deeper, and we're vulnerable when we do that as well. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of magic there.
Yeah. Love that. Very nice. All right. And everybody's loving this in the comments. Tessa said this is so helpful. So yeah, love it.
Amazing.
All right. So let's see. My my next one is and you mentioned this already a little bit, but the way you know we eat is a big impact on our mood. So they say food is mood, right? So if you eat a really like high fat cooked processed meal, you at least in my experience, if I were to eat like a lot of cooked food and it was high in fat and just bad combinations, I don't have the motivation to really do anything the rest of the night, right? So if I had a goal, like if I wanted to, do anything, I'd probably I would struggle to make those choices. But when I eat a clean, raw or mostly raw, and good combinations and things, hydrating, I have that emotion, that mood. My mood is so much better, so I'm more likely to make the good decisions later on in the day. So I think really looking at how the foods that we're eating are affecting our emotional state, which I mean, you can even look at. I like to always remind people to look at how foods eliminate when you eat them. So if you eat a food and it causes constipation, um, and when you're constipated, that's going to affect our mental state as well. So making sure we're eating foods that eliminate well, that are hydrating, high in fiber, have the vitamins and minerals in there. And when we do that, we're going to fuel our brain and our cognitive function in a way that allows us to, you know, stay motivated. And even if we're not motivated, when we're hydrated and we're, functioning on a good level, then there's a better chance that even when we're not quite as motivated, we'll still make pretty good choices. And so I think food is mood. And if you struggle with motivation, I would say maybe look at, what types of meals are you eating? What types of foods are you eating? Is there anything you can adjust in that to help, you know, bring your energy up, bring your, your clarity of mind up, and yeah, just making sure that you're supporting that, that supporting your mind in a way with the food that you're eating, and again making sure that it's flowing nicely through the body, it's not getting stuck and causing gas and bloating and all these things. So that would be my next quick one, is just understanding that food is mood and doing your best to consume foods that give you the highest clarity of mind.
I love it. So true. So true. Uh, yeah, obviously we could dive into that one as well. But one thing that came up to me recently, there's a couple of people um, that I'm working with that are from Indianapolis or live in Indianapolis, and apparently I'm not a race car uh, circuit follower by any means, but apparently the Indy 500 is today.
Oh,
uh, Whenever I think about food, you think about fuel, right?
yeah,
And you think about, okay, if I'm expecting to, my body to perform like it's a car in the Indy 500, but I'm putting in fuel that's not the highest quality, that, it's degraded in some way, has a bunch of additives in it and all these types of things. It's like, do you really think that you're going to be able to, let alone compete with everyone else, but how are you going to be able to, you know, show up with your own race, right? That you're
yeah.
in with your whatever competition that you're in. Um, so I think that's so true, and 100%. A lot of things are coming to me as well. As just I know that it can be really tough sometimes when you don't feel good. Like when you don't feel good, you're just not motivated to do anything. It's tough.
Hmm.
That's why I give people so much credit, because it can be difficult to make changes, serious life changes, like eating good, changing what you're eating,
Yeah.
when you're so accustomed to being in that state of not really having a lot of energy, feeling lethargic, not feeling motivated. So I give people so much credit when they're able to see a video like this or anything else that um, you know inspires them to make a change, or anything in their life that you know helps them to, as a catalyst, to make changes and then start changing what they're eating, because it's true, it's amazing how so much can stem from that, right? Like
Mm.
food is so foundational in that way, where if you start fueling yourself with foods that actually give you energy instead of take it from you, it could have a profound impact. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. Oh, that is such a great point. And things that something that more people I think should give themselves credit for is, yeah, when you don't feel good, it's hard to get yourself moving in the right direction. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people do get down on themselves for, not feeling like they can get out of that, but they're still watching videos like this, and they are still making progress. And so yeah, um it's good to recognize that in ourselves when we are still making good choices, even though we know, how we're feeling. So yeah, beautiful point. Right. So yeah, I think this is your third and final point here.
Awesome. uh, well, mine's it's somewhat overlaps with environment, but I think it's different in some ways, and that's the systems. And I would also say, kind of going back to what we were thinking about before, is defining what succeeding even looks like for you, right? Like the topic of this is like succeed without motivation. I think defining what success looks like is really helpful
Yeah.
in so many different ways. And before I talked about goals, there's this one book that I've really enjoyed. I've read a few about habits, but this one is kind of like the Bible, uh, at least from what I've seen. And it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Uh,
Yeah.
he has this amazing quote, and he says, "We don't rise to the level of our goals; we fall to the level of our systems."
Mm.
And I think that's true in so many different ways. I like analogies. Sometimes I feel like it helps me kind of understand things. So I always like to make the analogy of going to school. So, you know, when you go to college, high school, whatever it is, most people want to get good grades. Like they have the goal of getting good grades. But what separates the people that achieve those goals and the people that don't? The people that achieve those goals have the systems of showing up to class, taking notes, studying, doing all these different systems that eventually lead to them achieving their goals. And I feel like so much of life is kind of understanding where your systems are, right?
Mhm.
Like let's just go back to our systems and making progress in each of them, and creating those habits, creating those systems that, you know, whether you're not motivated, but if you have the system where, whatever it is, say you go on your run 3 times a week, sometimes you may not be motivated, but if that's an established system that you've worked towards, it's going to be so much easier to do it. You're not going to need the same amount of motivation, because that's a system that you've been working on for a while, right? So I think one practice that can be helpful is looking at our lives as a number of different systems in place, and then seeing which is the weakest one. Being honest with yourself and be like, oh, I know that that's my system that's really weak. Because like anything, the if we identify the one that's kind of the weakest, the, the more that we concentrate on that and bring that up to par, that's going to have the most profound impact on your life. So I'm a huge fan of following systems. And then the other thing too is I think as human beings we could be really really hard on ourselves sometimes. Um, Specifically, we were talking about before when you're not feeling good and then you're not motivated. It's really easy to be really hard on ourselves. We could be our own worst critic, right? It's so easy to encourage a friend and say, "Oh, you're doing great," and this and that, and then we do something like, "Ah, how did I mess that up? Why did you do this?" Right? Goes back to kind of being aware of our own self-talk. But I'm a huge fan of adopting the mindset of progress over perfection. Uh, Life is perfectly imperfect, and the more that we could kind of take those expectations of being perfect off of ourselves and just focusing like, okay, how am I going to progress with this system, right? Like right now my sleep's not the best. I'm like, on my phone late in the evening. I bring my phone into my bed. Where could I start, right? What could I start doing to progress in this specific system? And then I think uh, I'm gonna. There's some sort of quote about like the buoy and the tide, right? Like
Oh yeah.
if you focus on that lowest system, right, the one that needs the most amount of help, it's just gonna bring everything up, right? So, yeah, I think that's something where it's been really helpful for me in my life, and I've seen a number of other people can have gained a lot of benefit, kind of compartmentalizing things to a bit, and focusing on systems can be a really great way to have those habits in place, so you don't need as much motivation, and whatever motivation that you have, you could use for something else.
Yeah. So true. Oh man. Yeah. And wait, the is it all boats rise with the tide or something like that? I don't know.
I almost didn't want to say it because I don't know the
Yeah.
exact. So.
Right. But no, it's such an important point. And you mentioned like bringing the phone into the bed. That for me, that's been like the system that I need to upgrade for myself because, working too late into the night, looking at screens too close to going to bed, those are things that I notice when I do fix or I improve during the times where I'm doing well with that. All my other things are so much better. Like I'm so much better at doing everything else that I do. But when I let that one thing kind of slip back into a point where it's kind of dragging me down a little bit, my sleep suffers and then everything suffers. So, uh, yeah, I think that's an important point to look at those, analyze and be honest with yourself, like you said, about things that we can improve. And when we find one of those things that we can improve that impact pretty much everything else, like for me, it's the sleep. It can make a world of difference in our decision making and our dietary habits and all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, great stuff. All right, I'll throw my last one in here quick. Um, and we've both kind of touched on some of these things already as well, but I would say create momentum early in the day, right? So that could be part of your one of your systems. It's how do you start your day? Because as Marco mentioned earlier, sometimes we can have decision fatigue at the end of the day, and we just we've made so many decisions, and it's just like we're exhausted, and we just want to relax and eat whatever, right? Or just do whatever, and not do whatever. So I think setting yourself up with some good easy tasks that you can complete early in the day to give yourself some of that momentum, some of that dopamine, some of the just the mindset of achieving what you're trying to achieve, I think can be very helpful. So I think some common ones that people like to pick out their easy things: making your bed, picking things up around your room, having a glass of water first thing in the morning. And again, also bringing back in setting up your environment the right way. You can have a glass of water, just like make the habit of putting a glass of water out on your countertop or in the bathroom or wherever you go first thing, um, and have it there, sitting there every night. You put that there, so when you wake up, it's there. You drink it, and so it's an easy decision that next day. Um, or if you're having decision fatigue at the end of the day, and you're like, I don't want to put my glass of water out. Maybe put out like 7 glasses of water or something, so that every day it's already one time. You only had to do it one time, and then every day you can just pick up one of the glasses, and then you just have to do that. Remember to do that one time. Easy things, little hacks, I guess you can do to create your environment in a way that allows you to build that momentum early in the day. And again, that could be batch preparing meals. That could be putting fruit on the counter. Whatever it is. So I think finding things that you find to be pretty easy tasks that you need to do, and that you can do, get those taken care of early on. Make your bed, have a glass of water, whatever it is, and that I think can be very helpful in just getting you in that mindset and allowing you to feel a little more motivated going forward throughout the day.
Absolutely. I love that one. I think the key word that you mentioned was momentum, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's really true how impactful our morning can be. And it could, like everything we've been talking about too, it could go both ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think going back to the cell phone as well, it's like what's your day going to look like if you get on your phone right away, maybe see some sensational news article or see some work that you need to do, or you're checking your emails, or you see that there's some tragedy in the world that's thousands of miles away from you, or you're just scrolling through all this stuff and your brain is just already starting to get overloaded before you even really truly woken up,
Yeah.
versus what you're saying where you make your bed, start getting some wins, come back to getting back in your human body after you've just probably dreamed and flew all over the galaxy. Who knows what kind of dreams that you've had? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's huge. I think your day, I think there's a reason why there's been so many books and so many different formulas for like the quote unquote perfect morning routine. But I think it's so true. I mean, kind of going back to running a race, right? If you can't you can't win the race in the first 5 steps, right? Especially if it's like a sprint, right? But you can
Yeah.
lose it, right? If it's a 40-yard dash, your first 5 steps are off, you're done, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree 100%. Focusing on that good start sets yourself up for success and to succeed. I love it.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, so much quality tips and suggestions. So thank you, Marco, for the amazing insights and wisdom that you imparted on us today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we've been getting some great comments in here. Um,
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I just want to say it's been a pleasure, and it's just been really great going back and forth with you. And I love your points. It's been really seamless. And yeah, I hope people have gotten some good value from it.
yeah, they definitely haven't, and thank you. I appreciate that. Um, Valley says, "Thank you for saying these things. I have never heard anyone say anything like this, and it really touched me. This was so affirming. Blessings to you both for having compassion and understanding." Yeah, thank you,
Uh,
Valley. Appreciate that.
Blessings right back to you. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Okay. Well, again, this was incredible. So let's get into the Q&A here. Everybody, please get your questions in the chat if you haven't already put them in. I have seen a few comments. I haven't necessarily seen any questions, but let's hop. Oh, before we do, actually, before we go into the Q&A, can you? And I do actually have I think all of your links in the description box down below, but can you just share where people can find you if they want to, look into maybe one of your retreats or coaching or anything that you're offering?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I, we share a website together. It's holisticvitality.live. or live.
Love it.
And that has a place where you could check out our retreats. We're doing one in next year. We're doing one here in Costa Rica. It's called the Reconnect and Recharge Retreat. That's going to be from February 16th to 23rd. We're super excited about doing that. All plant based, a lot of raw food as well. And yeah, just a lot of amazing things that happen there. And then yeah, anything else as far as coaching is concerned, you could go to my website. I'm Coach Marco one-on-one on Instagram. Would love to connect with all of you. Any questions, I'm always happy to answer them and connect with everybody.
Amazing. All right. Thank you. I'm gonna look into that retreat. It sounds incredible.
Uh,
Yeah. All right. So let's hop into the Q&A room here. Here we go. So everybody, again, put your questions in that you have for Marco. That would be awesome. I did see someone, I think it was Sherry. She was commenting with Tessa. I think they were wondering, could you share just like an example of what Marco eats in a day?
yeah, absolutely. Um, to be honest, I feel like I don't have an exact routine as far as like the exact times that I eat or exactly what I'm eating all the time. There's always a little bit of flux, but there's definitely some like rigidness there at the same time as well, right?
Sure.
There's a foundation.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, for breakfast, it's usually just fruit. Sometimes juices as well. We just did a kind of a juice cleanse recently that felt really nice. Um, but yeah, here in Costa Rica, we're blessed to have so much different tropical fruit that, you know, that's one of the reasons. One of the pros about living here. There's no perfect place in the world, but one of the pros of living in Costa Rica is just having incredible pineapples and
Mm,
mangoes, all these different exotic fruits as well. Right now, we're kind of in the lower time of the year, but yeah, I love starting my day with fruit. It just makes me feel so good. Um, if I am going to be on the road, um, sometimes I take fruit with me. A lot of times I'll make a smoothie. So, once or twice a week, we go down to the beach. I used to teach tennis a while ago, so I still do that a couple times a week. So,
cool.
when I go down and teach tennis, I usually bring a smoothie with me. That's a really nice way to refuel, and that's going to look like um, frozen bananas, some sort of berries, coconut water, um, dandelions, chard, collard, some sort of green in there as well. Sometimes some powders, sometimes not. Kind of just depends how I'm feeling, or flaxseed or something like that. That's usually what I have for breakfast. Um, and then throughout the day, depending on what I'm doing again, if I'm coaching for most of the day and it's more of me sitting down, then I'm not going to be eating as much and fueling as much. Whereas if I'm out working on the land and tending to our trees or doing gardening or something like that, I usually come back and grab some bananas or grab some coconut water or some sort of fruit to kind of continue to fuel me. Um, and then yeah, I usually kind of just have two meals during the day. Um, so the afternoon, I wouldn't even want to call it dinner because we eat pretty early. We're
Okay.
like, we live the old people lifestyle. We get up early, go to bed early,
Yeah.
dinner is early, um, and we love it. It's really refreshing. So we usually eat around 3 or 4 o'clock or something like that is our last meal of the day, um, and that's when there's a lot more variety, right? I'm very blessed to be with my amazing wife. Not only is she an amazing person, but she's an amazing chef as well.
Nice.
So a lot of times I'm just the sous chef and helping cut things up, preparing things, and yeah, we kind of do all sorts of things. But it's always whole food, plant based. Uh, Sometimes it's fully raw. Sometimes it is veggies and other whole plant foods. But that's where we have a lot more variety, whether it's curries or um, raw lasagna or sushi or something like that. That's where we can mix it up. But sometimes simple too. Like to be honest, if my wife wasn't here, because she has this creative mind and she just she goes in the kitchen and she just puts things together, and it's like you have it once and sometimes you never have it again unless I
Yeah.
like force her to write it down and make notes. She's so creative in there.
so that's her environment. But for me, if I was when I lived by myself, like I was super simple.
Yeah.
I was having similar things. Like I would make a recipe here or there, but I think that's so important actually, um, as just to once again kind of know yourself better and be
Hmm.
honest with yourself. There's some people that need that novelty, that change, like having different recipes all the time. They need that in their lives. They need to buy all your ebooks and go through them and try new recipes all the time. And then there's other people that, simplicity works for them.
Yeah.
They could eat the same thing every day during the week and be completely fine. And obviously that's kind of an easier method, but I think the most sustainable one is knowing which one is correct for you. So yeah, that's what works for us.
Very cool. I'm very similar. Yeah, very similar to you. And I'm very like simple. So yeah. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Oh yeah, I was gonna. So this is my own personal question. Did you notice like an energetic shift, or like do you feel like living in Costa Rica, did that just alone by itself raise your health? Do you like your energy levels and things like that? I feel like just living in a place like that, surrounded by so much beautiful nature and everything, like that in itself is like just a boost to our overall wellness.
It is in a lot of ways. I'll talk about the both sides. Know, one thing that I love, especially now it's the rainy season, so we have an abundance of water. During the dry season, it kind of starts to dry up a little bit, but when it's the rainy season, there's just so much water. So
Mm,
I love we have a creek on our property and it just flows during the rainy season. And whenever I'm able to get down there and dive in there and just like be in that creek, it's like that's a huge energy boost for me. It's like
wow.
makes me feel so alive, so healing, and just being able to be outside. You know, I think that's something that is getting in the way of health for a lot of people, of how our society is set up, living in boxes. And I think anytime you live in a place that's conducive to being outside, it's really helpful. So, getting my hands in the dirt, the beaches here are amazing. Yeah, it's definitely the sun, like obviously the produce and things of that nature. But yeah, I think there's definitely a reason why a lot of people feel called to come here and experience living here or just coming for a couple weeks. I mean, that's what really made me want to come here. Is I came here when I was younger with my family. Actually, when
Mm,
I was like a teenager, multiple times we would just come for family vacations. I had a bunch of family friends that moved to this area, um, but it really wasn't until I came back like a decade later. So right before I went to college, I came here with a friend of mine, just us two, and we went on a little adventure, which was really fun. And 10 years had passed, and then I came back for a retreat, um, and I just felt so amazing,
mm.
like rising with the sun in the morning, just being barefoot, like I said, like bathing in these amazing waterfalls and streams and all these things. I just like, especially when you come from the dark New Jersey winter in like February, and then you come to
Right.
Costa Rica. It's like I was like, a couple days in, I was like, I just want to live here. I just
Uh-huh.
want this to be life, right? But there's downsides as well, right? Like it could be pretty humid.
Sure.
Um, Everything wants to eat here, including bugs, and you're a big target. So
Yeah.
that could be part of it. As times, obviously, the to me, like in the grand scheme of things, those are minor things. But yeah, I think Costa Rica is checks a lot of boxes for me. So that's one of the reasons why I really love being here.
So cool. Yeah, it sounds beautiful. I've never actually been there, but I plan to visit here soon. So, um,
Yeah, it'd be great to have you. You're welcome to come, and I'd
cool.
love to show you around and show you all the great spots there are
That
here.
that would be awesome. I'll definitely keep you posted. Um, let's see. Music Monster Man says, "How do you motivate others who you love and want to help with diet and exercise when they won't listen to you?" He said, "My dad has hypertension, and I keep trying to tell him what to do, but he won't listen."
Hmm. That's a tough one, to be honest. It's definitely challenging when and you have the information to really help people that are struggling.
Mhm.
And you know that if they change their lifestyle, if they change what they were eating, if they change a number of different things, that they would feel better and they could potentially live longer, healthier, happier lives. Um, the reality is, though, and it's kind of could be freeing to come to terms with this to some degree, is that everybody's on their own path. And, you know, I've definitely seen people where they've rejected something like that for a significant amount of time. And then, everybody's different. Sometimes for certain people, it needs to get more serious, right? Like until they get a specific diagnosis or some event happens in their lives, it's really difficult to say, because we're all so different, is what's going to be that catalyst for change. Um, I think the best thing that you can do, um, is, respect his decisions, that it's his life and it's his choices. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're all responsible for the choices that we make. We all live in our bodies and nobody else's. So so everything that we choose is for us. Um, but one thing that I think is very powerful, and I've seen this happen time and time again, whether I'm working with somebody and they say, "Oh, I really wish my partner would eat this way, but they eat, this normal thing, and there's no way they're ever gonna do this," or something like that. From what I've seen, the more that we can just respect their decisions to live their lives how they want it, and instead of putting energy into trying to persuade them or to force them into changing, take that energy and put it into yourself and say, okay, I'm going to go back to my systems, right? I'm going to focus on myself, and I'm just going to be a living example of what living a healthy life looks like, feels like, and all the benefits of that. That can be really contagious sometimes. And I've seen time and time again when there's certain people that people, wanted to change and they thought would never happen, and it ends up happening just because they were the example. And a lot of times I know it can be difficult, but not try and force them or not try and persuade them by any means. A lot of times that could put them off to some degree. So just accepting that and just focusing on yourself, that would be my advice to. It's kind of a backwards way of doing it, but at the end of the day, um, you know, that's all you can do. That they make their own choices, and then if you just make yourself this amazing person, then um, people are gonna people are gonna see that and be attracted to that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've experienced all that in my own life as well. I had friends that fought me so hard on when I switched over to this lifestyle, and they just told me all these things that were going to go wrong for my health, and I just respected their opinion and I just did me. And then as time went on, they started asking me questions about health, like how to, and so eventually some of those people that fought me the hardest were asking me years later that how they can start transitioning to a plant-based diet. So yeah, it takes time for some people. Like Marco said, it's their life, their decisions, and really I think when it comes to family, that's oftentimes, luckily for me, I actually, when I switched to this lifestyle, half of my family actually switched after a while too, to after after the I, I I didn't necessarily try to convince them, but I did share information with them that I found helpful, and so they looked at it and they came to the same conclusion, so they started moving in the same way. So, I would say also that it's hard to convince a family member a lot of times for many people to make a change. So if you can share with them just information from somebody else that's saying the exact same thing that you would say,
Yeah,
hearing
really
it from
nice.
somebody outside of the family that they don't even know is often more effective than you trying to tell them directly, because for whatever reason, I can't. Now I'm gonna mess up a quote. I can't remember what the quote is, but it's like you can't be a prophet in your own home or something like that. I don't remember what it is, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I've heard something like
essentially, there's some weird thing where they just don't take what you say as seriously as they take out from somebody else.
that.
So maybe just share some information with them, let them decide if they want to look into it, and if they do, a lot of times that can be pretty powerful too. So maybe a documentary. Even there's documentaries out, a lot of good documentaries out there that are entertaining to watch and also very motivating and inspiring. So that would be something that I would say too.
That's a great point.
You. Um, Stacy from the Urban Pharmacy said, "What could you repeat the name of the retreat and how they can check that out?"
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of the retreat is the Reconnect and Recharge Retreat. And really the best way to do it would be to go to our website, which is holisticvitality.live. Um, and then from there, there's the retreat tab, there's a flyer, there's our contact information, where you can, there's a bunch of information about the dates in February, kind of the activities and what it's going to look like. And then, yeah, if you have any additional questions, we'd love to hear from you. We just kind of announced it recently, so we're getting some inquiries at the moment. So yeah, any questions or any way we could help you, that would be the place to go. You could
Great.
also contact me on Instagram and send me a message as well. So any of those resources would work.
Awesome. Okay. Tessa wants to know. So we've got time for maybe two more questions here. Tessa wants to know, how does one get out of a rut, like a routine rut? Now, you could go back and watch the show, Tessa, but I'm not sure if Marco has any ideas.
Yeah, like you said, I think that's been a lot of what we've been talking about, is kind of how to get out of a rut in a lot of ways. Um, I think at the end of the day, um, it can be really hard. Like I think a rut is very mental, right? Kind of the
Yeah.
theme of our show today is like how we're viewing ourselves. We feel like we're in a rut, right? So I think you get out of it the same way you got in, right? Is that start with the mental space and just being like, okay, I'm just going to start taking action, right? I'm going to start taking action in some sort of way. We've kind of talked about how to take action without motivation, because when you're in a rut, you probably don't feel very motivated. So yeah, reconnecting with your why. You were saying about really hacking your environment. So many different. Yeah, I would definitely recommend to watch from the beginning, and I think you're going to get a lot of useful tips on that. Um, and I think going back to the mental aspect as well is just like, remember that this is a part of life. Sometimes we're in ruts.
Yep.
This too shall pass. Everything's going to change. So just start focusing on, okay, what are some small steps that I can take today, that I could take now to, not completely get me out of the rut, but maybe start climbing up out of there, right? Take those first couple steps towards that, and just take it, one day, one meal, one night at a time, and you'll get back where you want to be.
Love it. That's spot on. I couldn't agree more. Um, Arl says, I have so much motivation to help others, but little motivation to do things for me. I know this is normal, but I always remember the saying, you need to look after yourself and then you can help others. Have any thoughts about that?
For sure. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about before to some degree. And to be completely transparent and honest, like, I think everybody should have a therapist. The
Yeah.
therapy, I didn't do therapy till recently in my life, and
Mm.
I've done different types of therapies, and they've all been really helpful. And I think kind of the more that you dive deeper, we were talking about before, like asking yourself why, keep asking yourself why and why again, or if you notice that there's certain patterns that you have, like self-sabotage is something that comes up, or just putting limiting beliefs on yourselves that could potentially prevent you from getting to your goals, or what you're talking about is like being able to help everybody else, but sometimes it's a feeling of worth and worthiness, of feeling, it's not, I'm not a therapist, so I can't diagnose these things by any means, but I think that there's so much benefit of, and even if it's, a therapist can be helpful because you're talking with somebody that has no attachment to you and they're just able to listen to you. And I could just speak from my personal experience that it can be really helpful, to kind of dive deeper into certain things and asking some of those deeper questions. There's definitely times as a coach where, um, we'll get to a certain spot and be like, okay, I can't help you any further from this point, because so much of it does come back to our childhood in a lot of ways, and some things that we've gone through, and those things, it's really an amazing thing. It's difficult, but a lot of times um, those past incidences or events or belief systems come up when you're making these changes, right? And it's an opportunity to work on certain things. So um, yeah, just know that you are worthy of everything else. I think that's something that a lot of times it's very common to think about self-worth, like we were talking about before. Like it's really easy to praise everybody else, be a people pleaser, but to know that you are worthy, like everybody else, of those same things. I think that can be a helpful thing to think about when taking care of yourself, and knowing that when you take care of yourself, like that's just an act of self-love. Ultimately, when you're doing meal prep, when you're going on your run, when you're starting with an amazing morning routine, all of those things are just showing are acts of self-love ultimately.
Yeah, so well said. And really, self-love is one of the most generous things you can do for others, because when you improve yourself, you inspire countless other people, So the ripple effect of doing the right things for yourself and committing to, you know, treating yourself in the way that you would treat others, the ripple effect of that, just being the example, like Marco said, is like, it's so powerful. So don't discount the fact that doing something for yourself is actually doing something for others in another way.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that was terrific. There's so many great compliments and good comments in here about the show and about everything that you shared. So thank you so much again, everybody. If I think we got to all the questions, but I'm not always the best at catching all of them as I scroll through the chat, but I think we got to them. So I want to thank everybody out there for putting your questions in. I'm going to do the do the weekly scroll through the chats and let my mouse select the winner of the drawing. So let's see who we get today.
Nice.
Yes,
On the edge of my seat.
it landed on Sherry. So
Nice.
Sherry, congratulations. If you would like either one of my ebooks, I know you have all of my ebooks, but if you want a free bottle of Daily Green Boost, I have a code that you can get that. So message me at matt@myrawintuition.com, and I will get that over to you. And I appreciate the great questions from everybody out there, and for hanging out with us today on a Sunday. It's always an honor to hang out with everybody, that all you guys that come back every week. It's such an honor to be able to hang out with you, and everybody else that maybe you stopped in for the first time. Great to see you. Hope you'll come back next week as well. And actually, in just about 25 minutes, we've got the Raw Intuition game show. So we've got two exciting guests coming on to do some holistic health trivia. So definitely tune in for that. But yeah, again, check out the links to Marco's website and his Instagram. I did see somebody asked, do you share content anywhere else other than Instagram? Do you do YouTube or anything?
I am on YouTube, but not too much. I need to ramp it up.
Okay.
It's one of the systems that I'm focusing on
There you
is
go.
YouTube, social media, and things of that nature.
Cool. Well, I'll add the link to your YouTube down there as well. But yeah, I've got his website, so you can check that out. Oh, I have your Linktree link in there too, so that should link to everything there as well. So yeah, again, thanks again, Marco, and thank you everybody else for being here. We will catch you next week, or if you're going to come back for the game show, see you in a little bit. But until next time, always follow your raw intuition.